Service workers saying "I quit" are pushing up wages and shutting down the tradition of tipping your waiter. Here's a really interesting article that came out in Business Insider this morning, highlighting what's kind of a very interesting trend in service work and especially in food service work. And it's kind of a trend that I can see kind of permeating other industries. It ties a little bit of that kind of downward spiral that we talked about in another video, looking at TGI Fridays and their strategy. But essentially, the article shows us that because of the macroeconomic dynamics at work right now and the labor shortages, restaurants are having to think about at least the way that they're compensating their employees, or at least their waiters and service workers. And a lot of them are moving away from kind of that traditional tipped wage where you could bring your minimum wage below kind of the federal minimum wage and then kind of bump it up with what you would expect them to make in tips. And they're kind of moving away from that model and introducing a service fee that you put onto the customers, and then as a result they're able to charge a higher per hour wage, and that gives, at least on paper, a little bit more job security to the service workers. It just changes the dynamic. One of the restaurants, at least, that they highlight in this article is offering wages up to between $18 and $24 an hour, which gets them right up to being competitive, at least with like kind of an Amazon, or even higher kind of than that, at least in an org chart. And it's very interesting because it's something that it was inevitable when you think about kind of the way that the labor force is thinking about work today, as a result of the pandemic and kind of the shifting priorities. Minimum wage, of course, is one of those big topics that's kind of going around the press. So here's a tactic that smaller restaurants are having to employ, and it speaks to the creativity and the strategy that we're going to have to implement, or we're going to have to see smaller companies play in, like the world that they're going to have to play in order to compete with these companies that have the big balance sheets and have the big resources that are able to kind of throw money at the problem, so to speak. And so here we highlight service workers in the hospitality or the restaurant industry, but there's a big issue in childcare right now too. Kind of going back to that spiral that we talked about in the TGI Fridays video. Childcare companies are having an issue with finding staff. I know that there's been a big problem there of workers who have had to probably work through the pandemic, and have seen maybe incremental or marginal raises on top of their hourly wage, and they're of course being attracted by these companies, the $15, $16, $17 an hour that you can get at like at a bigger corporation, and droves of workers are leaving childcare. And what does that do kind of for the greater workforce? Well, if childcare organizations or companies can't stay in business, then other professionals can't leave their kids at the childcare places, and then all these kind of second, third order effects come into play as a result of kind of a root problem, which is the childcare company can't keep a hold of its employees. And so again, it's one of those where as employer brand practitioners, if we were in a place where we were working at a childcare facility, what could we do to make sure that, if we couldn't compete at the wage level, what else are we contributing to the employees' lives to make it so that it's still a place that is attractive to work? And then, again, a couple of things come to mind. When we're dealing with human beings, you can appeal to passions, you can appeal to different things. So, things that don't maybe affect the balance sheet as much. Can you do some stuff around continuing education? Can you help people get to where they want to get to in the future? Can you invest in maybe passion projects that your employees have? Stuff that makes the employee feel engaged and connected to the organization. And then typically, money it never really becomes secondary in priority, but there'll be other things that a large organization can't compete with. I pulled up I went to the McDonald's career site just to get an idea of what they're offering in terms of benefits to their employees, right? So this is just to give everybody a frame of mind for what companies, in this article we're talking about restaurants, childcare companies, different smaller organizations are having to compete with, or compete against, in terms of benefits, and what these big organizations who can pay these higher sometimes hourly wages can also offer on the benefit side. So McDonald's, for their managers, is offering major medical, prescription drug card, dental insurance, vision insurance, life insurance, long and short term disability insurance, PTO, flexible spending accounts. You can talk about the economic value of that, but there's a peace of mind value there too. That as a smaller organization, you've got to think about and kind of appeal to, and compete against. At the crew member level at McDonald's, sure, you don't have those kind of maybe like security, you'd say, the security kind of benefits the apply to your life, but crew members get stock purchase plan, they get access to a 401k, so there's still strong financial incentives that you could say, like, if somebody wasn't happy with their hourly wage and there were no kind of other intrinsic values that the organization was bringing to their life or their livelihood, that you could see how something like a McDonald's would become attractive, especially now that everybody's competing on a wage level. So this article, I think, is just it highlights a trend that I think we're going to see more of going forward, where we're going to see the service industry, other industries that traditionally competed at a maybe, for example, like a lower wage level, at a tipped wage level, where they're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to think about other ways that they can appeal to keep talent, because it's so economically harmful for these organizations not to have not to be optimally staffed, and so the changing things up can get their wage offering up to 18 to 24 an hour, and then it's a game changer already. So really interesting. I think something that we're going to see more of, but just interesting to highlight from an employer brand standpoint.